The massive ship moved through space like a silver mountain. Its hull stretched for miles, covered in lights that pulsed in patterns no human had ever seen. Inside the ship, Ambassador Zethkri stood on the command deck, his forearms crossed behind his back as he watched the blue-green planet grow larger on the viewing screen. Earth, the newest discovery. The 848th species to achieve faster-than-light travel. Zethkri had done this dance many times before. In his 300 years of service to the Galactic Council, he had welcomed 23 different species into their great confederation. Each time followed the same pattern. Each time ended the same way. "Sir," called his communications officer, a thin creature with purple skin and eyes like black pearls. "We are receiving multiple transmissions from the planet. They seem to know we are here." "Of course they do," Zethkri said with something that might have been a smile on his alien face. "Their technology is primitive but not completely worthless. Begin standard first contact protocol." The communications officer pressed several buttons on his console. Across the ship, dozens of technicians began their work. They had intercepted human radio and television signals for months. Their computers had learned every human language, studied every custom, analyzed every piece of data that leaked into space. "Broadcasting now, sir. All major population centers are receiving our message." On Earth, every television screen went black. Every radio fell silent. Every computer connected to the internet displayed the same message in perfect local languages. In New York, the words appeared in English. In Beijing, they showed in Mandarin. In Moscow, Russian text scrolled across millions of screens. "Greetings, people of Earth. We are the Galactic Council, representatives of 847 advanced civilizations. We come in peace to welcome you into the galactic community. Please prepare your leaders for negotiations. We will arrive in orbit in 72 hours. The message was polite, formal, and completely non-negotiable in its tone. Zethkri watched the planet's response with interest. Radio chatter increased dramatically. Military satellites changed their orbits. The primitive space stations began broadcasting on frequencies they had never used before. It was all very predictable. "Sir," the communications officer said again, "we are detecting increased military activity on the surface. Several spacecraft have launched from their moon base." "How many ships?" Zethkri asked, though he was not particularly concerned. 12 small vessels, sir. They appear to be observing us from a distance." Zethkri made a sound that was his species' version of laughter. 12 ships. How amusing. The Valdari sent 300 when we first contacted them. The Hegemony sent over 1,000. 12 ships suggest either great confidence or great stupidity. He walked to the center of the command deck, where a holographic display showed the positions of all ships in the solar system. The human vessels hung at the edge of sensor range, clearly watching but making no aggressive moves. "Begin the demonstration," Zethkri ordered. This was his favorite part. Every species needed to understand their place in the galaxy. The Galactic Council had learned long ago that displays of overwhelming power saved time and lives. Better to show strength immediately than to waste months in pointless negotiations. The convergence began to glow. Energy collectors that had been dormant since their journey began now came online. The ship's shields activated, creating a shimmering barrier around the massive vessel. The barrier was strong enough to withstand the explosion of a small star. The weapons systems powered up next, energy readings that would be visible to any civilization capable of space travel. "Are they scanning us?" Zethkri asked. "Yes, sir. Very intensively. Their sensors are more advanced than expected for their technology level." Zethkri nodded approvingly. "Good. Let them see what they face. Are you recording their communications?" "Yes, sir. They are quite varied in their responses." That was normal too. Some human leaders would be calling for immediate surrender. Others would be planning hopeless resistance. A few might even be discussing the benefits of joining a galactic civilization. Within days, they would reach consensus. They always did. The first official response came 6 hours later. "Unknown vessel." The transmission began in clear, unaccented English. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth United Defense Command. We acknowledge your message and your demonstration of technological capabilities. Earth's governments are prepared to receive a diplomatic party at the United Nations headquarters in New York. We request that you maintain your current position while arrangements are made." Zethkri was pleased. This Admiral Chen sounded reasonable, professional. The humans were not panicking or making threats they could not keep. This would be easier than usual. Send a diplomatic shuttle, he ordered. Standard delegation? 12 guards, 3 translators, and myself. We will make this quick. The shuttle that detached from the convergence was itself larger than most human aircraft. It descended through Earth's atmosphere with casual disregard for the military jets that escorted it. The escort was clearly ceremonial. The human weapons could not scratch the shuttle's hull. The United Nations building had been cleared of everyone except essential personnel. World leaders attended by video link from secure locations. Admiral Chen met the delegation at the entrance, flanked by an honor guard of soldiers whose weapons looked like toys compared to Galactic Council technology. Zethkri studied the human leader carefully. She was smaller than he had expected. Most humans were small compared to his species, but she carried herself with dignity. Her uniform was simple but well maintained. Her eyes showed intelligence and something else, something he could not immediately identify. "Welcome to Earth," Admiral Chen said formally. "I am honored to meet you, Ambassador." "The honor is ours," Zethkri replied, his translator device rendering his words in perfect English. "We come to offer your species a great gift. Membership in the Galactic Council will bring you protection, advanced technology, and access to trade with nearly 1,000 worlds." "That sounds like a generous offer," Admiral Chen said carefully. "What would membership require?" This was always the crucial moment. Zethkri had given this speech so many times he could recite it in his sleep. The requirements are simple and reasonable. Earth would contribute resources to the common defense. Your military forces would be integrated into council structure. Your governments would align their laws with galactic standards. Your people would accept council oversight of interstellar activities. In return, you receive protection from hostile species, access to technologies that would advance your civilization by thousands of years, and the right to trade freely throughout council space. Admiral Chen listened without interruption. When he finished, she was quiet for several seconds. "I see," she said finally. "And if we decline this generous offer?" "Decline?" Zethkri was genuinely surprised. "Admiral, I do not think you understand. Your species has achieved faster than light travel. By galactic law, you must either join the council or be classified as a rogue development. Rogue developments are dealt with." "I understand perfectly," Admiral Chen said. Her voice remained calm, professional. "You are offering us a choice between submission and destruction. Is that correct?" "I prefer to think of it as a choice between cooperation and unfortunate necessity." Admiral Chen nodded slowly. "I see. Ambassador, I need to consult with world leaders before giving you an answer." "How long can you wait?" 72 hours. This is more than generous. Most species require far less time to see reason. Thank you. You will have our answer within that time frame. As the diplomatic shuttle returned to the convergence, Zethkri felt satisfied with the meeting. The human leader had been shocked by their terms, but that was normal. She would spend the next 3 days explaining reality to her people. There would be debate, argument, perhaps even protests. But eventually they would accept the inevitable. They always did. He had no way of knowing that. Admiral Chen was already implementing plans that had been in development since humanity's first FTL engine came online. Plans based on careful observation of exactly what happened to species that encountered the Galactic Council. Plans that would change everything. Zethkri expected the humans to spend 3 days in chaos. He expected desperate meetings, heated arguments, and the kind of panic that always gripped primitive species when they realized their place in the galaxy. What he did not expect was silence. For 60 hours, Earth sent no communications to the convergence. The planet's radio chatter continued normally. Television broadcasts showed regular programming. The internet carried the usual flood of human thoughts and arguments. But none of it was directed at the Galactic Council. It was as if the humans had simply forgotten about them. "Sir," the communications officer reported for the 10th time that day. "Still no official response from Earth. Should we send another message?" "No," Zethkri said, though he was beginning to feel something unfamiliar. Doubt. "They know our deadline. Let them come to us," but privately he was disturbed. In 300 years of diplomatic service, he had never encountered such a response. Species always responded quickly to first contact. Some begged for mercy within hours. Others sent streams of questions about council technology and trade opportunities. A few sent threats they could not back up. None had ever simply ignored him. The answer came with exactly 1 hour remaining. Before the deadline expired, incoming. Transmission from Earth, the communications officer announced. Admiral Chen is requesting a video conference. Put her on the main screen, Zethkri ordered. Admiral Chen appeared on the viewing screen, sitting at what appeared to be the same conference table where they had met before. She looked rested, composed, and completely unworried about the massive alien warship hanging over her planet. Ambassador, she said with a slight nod, thank you for your patience. Earth's governments have reached a unanimous decision regarding your offer. Excellent, Zethkri said, relaxing slightly. Unanimous decisions always meant acceptance. No species could maintain unity in the face of galactic annihilation, except through surrender. I assume you are ready to begin integration procedures? Not exactly, Admiral Chen said calmly. We have decided to respectfully decline your offer of membership in the Galactic Council. The command deck of the Convergence fell completely silent. Every crew member stopped what they were doing and stared at the screen. Zethkri felt his 4 hearts skip several beats. I beg your pardon? He managed to say. We appreciate the offer. Admiral Chen continued in the same professional tone she might use to decline a dinner invitation. But at this time, humanity chooses to remain independent. We would be happy to establish normal diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council. But we will not be joining your organization, Admiral, Zethkri said slowly. I do not think you understand the consequences of this decision. Species that refuse Council membership are classified as rogue developments. The galaxy cannot allow uncontrolled civilizations to spread unchecked. We understand your position perfectly, Admiral Chen replied. However, our decision stands. Humanity will remain independent. We also want to make it clear that we consider this solar system to be human territory. We would appreciate it if Council ships respected our territorial boundaries. Your territorial boundaries? Zethkri could not hide his amazement. Admiral, you have 12 ships. We have 47,000. You are threatening us with 12 ships? We are not threatening anyone, Admiral Chen said patiently. We are simply stating our position. This solar system belongs to humanity. We will defend it if necessary. This is impossible, Zethkri muttered, more to himself than to the human. He looked around his command deck at the shocked faces of his crew. Admiral, in 50,000 years of galactic history, no species has ever refused Council membership when faced with the alternative. Then I suppose we are the first, Admiral Chen said with something that might have been a smile. Will there be anything else, Ambassador? Yes, Zethkri said, his shock beginning to transform into anger. There will be very much else. You have made a grave mistake, Admiral Chen. I hope your people are prepared for the consequences. We are prepared for whatever comes, Admiral Chen replied. Thank you for your time, Ambassador. Earth out. The screen went dark. Zethkri stared at the blank screen for several long minutes. Around him, his crew waited for orders that did not come. Finally, his tactical officer broke the silence. Sir, should we begin pacification procedures? Zethkri shook his head as if waking from a dream. I need to contact the Council immediately. This situation is unprecedented. The call to the Council homeworld took several hours to establish. When the connection finally opened, Zethkri found himself facing the 12 members of the High Council, ancient beings from the species that had founded the Galactic Confederation millennia ago. Ambassador, spoke High Counselor Vexthan, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. We have received your preliminary report. You claim that this species called humanity has refused membership. This seems impossible. I assure you, High Counselor, it is exactly what happened. They have declared their solar system to be independent territory and stated they will defend it. With 12 ships, another counselor added skeptically, against the entire might of the galaxy. Yes, High Counselor. The High Council members exchanged glances that Zethkri could not interpret. Finally, Vexthan spoke again. This cannot be allowed to stand. If word spreads that a species successfully defied the Council, it could destabilize everything we have built. You will proceed with standard enforcement protocols immediately. High Counselor, Zethkri said carefully, there is something else. Since our arrival, we have detected significant changes in human space activity. Ships are moving throughout their solar system in patterns we do not recognize. They appear to be preparing for something. Preparing for annihilation, scoffed another counselor. As they should be. Ambassador, you have your orders. Pacify the system. Integrate any survivors into council structure. Do not contact us again until this matter is resolved. The connection ended, leaving Zethkri alone with his thoughts and his crew. He looked around the command deck at beings from a dozen different species, all united under council authority, all taken from their homeworlds as children, and raised to serve the greater galactic community, all of them looking at him now with something that might have been uncertainty. "Sir?" his tactical officer asked again. "Orders?" Zethkri was quiet for a long moment. Then he straightened, falling back on the protocols that had guided him for 3 centuries. "Contact Fleet Command. Request immediate reinforcement. Battle Group 7, 12, and 23 should be sufficient." "Sir?" his communications officer interrupted. "We are receiving new scanner data from our perimeter probes." "What kind of data?" "The human ships, sir. There are not 12 anymore." Zethkri felt a cold sensation in his chest. "How many?" "Current count is 47 vessels, sir, and more launching every hour." "Where were they hiding them?" "That is the problem, sir. They were not hiding. Our scans show they are new construction. The humans appear to have been building ships continuously since we arrived." "In 3 days?" "Yes, sir. Their construction techniques are unusual." Zethkri stared at the tactical display showing the growing number of human vessels. Each one was small by council standards, but there were so many of them. And if they could build this many in 3 days, how long until reinforcements arrive? He asked. 17 days, sir." Zethkri nodded grimly. "Then we wait. And we watch, and we try to understand what kind of species we are dealing with." On the tactical display, the number of human ships continued to climb, 53, 58, 62. By morning, there were over 100. For the first time in his long career, Ambassador Zethkri began to wonder if the Galactic Council had finally encountered something it could not simply overwhelm with superior numbers and technology, something that had been preparing for this moment far longer than anyone realized. The 3 council battle fleets arrived like avenging gods. Over 1,500 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of human space, their combined mass greater than most moons. Each ship bristled with weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand stellar bombardment. Admiral Kexvar of Battle Group 7 took command of the operation from his flagship, a dreadnought called Inevitable Victory. The name had never been more appropriate. His screen showed over 300 human vessels scattered throughout the solar system, but they might as well have been insects challenging a hurricane. "Begin standard pacification protocol," Kexvar ordered. "Send the surrender demand." The message broadcast on all human frequencies was simple and direct. "Attention inhabitants of this system. You are in violation of Galactic Council law. Surrender immediately and you will be relocated to suitable worlds within Council space. Continued resistance will result in the complete sterilization of your solar system. You have 1 hour to comply." The response came within minutes. "Council forces," Admiral Chen's voice was as calm as ever. "You are entering human territory without permission. Please withdraw immediately to avoid any unfortunate incidents." Admiral Kexvar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Unfortunate incidents?" "Admiral, I have 1,500 warships. You have a few hundred civilian vessels and delusions of adequacy. Last chance, surrender now." "We respectfully decline," Admiral Chen replied. "All human civilians have been evacuated to safe positions. You are advised that any aggressive action will be met with appropriate defensive measures." "Evacuated where?" Kexvar demanded. "We have this entire system under surveillance. There is nowhere to run." But even as he spoke, his tactical officers were reporting disturbing information. "Sir, our scans show that Earth, Mars, and the other major population centers are empty. No significant life signs detected." "Empty? Impossible. Where are they hiding?" "Unknown, sir. But there is something else. The human ships are not retreating. They appear to be moving into attack formations." Kexvar studied his tactical display with growing amazement. The human vessels were indeed positioning themselves as if they intended to fight. Small groups were spreading throughout the asteroid belt, while others hung near the gas giants. It looked almost like, "They are setting up an ambush," he said aloud. "They actually think they can ambush us." "Sir," his weapons officer asked, "should we engage?" "Target their largest concentration and fire. Let us end this delusion quickly." Battle Group 7 opened fire on a cluster of human ships near Jupiter. Energy beams that could melt continents lanced through space, striking their targets with devastating accuracy. The human vessels disappeared in brilliant explosions. 17 enemy ships destroyed, the weapons officer reported with satisfaction. Excellent. Continue targeting, sir. The tactical officer's voice was sharp with alarm. Emergency reading from the Jupiter engagement zone. What kind of reading? The human ships, sir. They are not destroyed. They are intact. The tactical display updated, showing impossible information. The human vessels that had been caught in the bombardment were still there, still functional, still moving. That is impossible, HFY snarled. Nothing can survive direct hits from our primary weapons. Sir, I am detecting massive energy signatures from the Jupiter zone. The humans appear to have been using the planet's magnetic field to absorb our weapons fire. HFY stared at the display in disbelief. They used a gas giant as a shield? How did they know our weapons would interact with planetary magnetic fields? Before anyone could answer, alarms began screaming throughout the flagship. Multiple contacts approaching at high speed. The sensor operator called out. Small vessels, dozens of them, coming from the asteroid belt. From where? We scanned those asteroids thoroughly. They appear to have been hiding inside hollowed-out asteroids, sir. Launching now. The human attack was like nothing in Council military doctrine. Instead of massive ships engaging in long-range bombardment, swarms of small fighters streaked toward the Council fleet at incredible speed. They moved in patterns that seemed random but somehow avoided most defensive fire. Target the fighters, HFY ordered. Destroy them. But the human tactics were infuriating. The small ships did not engage the Council vessels directly. Instead, they launched what appeared to be simple metal projectiles. Chunks of asteroidal debris accelerated to tremendous speeds by primitive railgun technology. The projectiles should have been useless against Council shields. Instead, they somehow slipped through energy barriers and struck hull plating with devastating effect. How are they penetrating our defenses? HFY demanded. Unknown, sir. The projectiles appear to be inert metal. They should not be able to breach our shields. Then why are they doing exactly that? The answer came from his science officer, a young Valdari who had been running continuous scans of the human weapons. Sir, the projectiles are not just metal. They contain some kind of interference pattern. Electromagnetic frequencies that temporarily disrupt our shield harmonics. It is crude but effective. More alarms sounded as human fighters swarmed around Council ships like angry insects. They were too small and too fast for the massive Council weapons to target effectively. Worse, when Council ships did manage to hit them, the fighters often exploded with tremendous force, far more than their size should have allowed. Sir, I think they are using their own ships as guided bombs. The tactical officer reported with something like admiration. When their fighters are critically damaged, the pilots are ramming our ships and detonating explosive charges. Suicide attacks? HFY was appalled. What kind of species uses suicide attacks as standard tactics? A desperate one, sir. But as the battle continued, it became clear that desperation was not the right word. The human attacks were too well coordinated, too precisely timed. This was not the random flailing of a doomed species. This was a carefully planned military operation. Sir, the communications officer sounded panicked. Battle Group 12 is reporting massive casualties. They are requesting immediate assistance. What? How is that possible? The tactical display told the story in terrifying detail. Battle Group 12 had been ambushed near Saturn by human forces that had somehow hidden entire fleets in the planet's ring system. The Council ships, designed for combat in open space, were struggling to fight effectively among the debris of the rings. Battle Group 23 is also under attack, the communications officer continued. Human forces near Mars are using some kind of gravity weapon. They are throwing asteroids at our ships. HFY watched in horror as his supposedly overwhelming advantage crumbled. The humans were not fighting like any civilized species. They were using the solar system itself as a weapon, turning planets and moons and asteroid fields into tactical advantages that Council doctrine had never anticipated. All units, fall back to defensive formation, he ordered. We need to regroup and assess the situation. But the humans did not allow them to regroup. As the Council ships tried to establish a defensive perimeter, more human vessels appeared from impossible hiding places. Some emerged from inside the asteroid belt, others from behind the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. A few even seemed to come from the direction of the sun itself, though that should have been impossible. Where are they all coming from? HFY asked desperately. Sir, his science officer said quietly, I think they have been preparing for this exact scenario since they achieved faster-than-light travel. Every hiding place, every ambush point, every tactical advantage, this is all planned. Planned? How could they plan for something they had never experienced? Sir, what if they had experienced it? What if they observed Council first contact procedures with other species before we arrived here? The thought was chilling. If the humans had been watching, learning, preparing, then everything the Council thought they knew about this species was wrong. Sir, the tactical officer's voice cut through his thoughts. Human vessels are beginning to retreat. Finally! All units pursue and destroy them. But as the Council ships gave chase, they discovered that the human retreat was just another trap. The fleeing human vessels led them into carefully prepared kill zones where more fighters waited with more improvised weapons and suicidal determination. By the end of the first day of fighting, Admiral HFY had lost over 200 ships to an enemy that should have been destroyed in the first hour of combat as night fell over the battlefield, though there was no real night in space. HFY stared at his casualty reports and tried to understand what had gone wrong. Somewhere, in the darkness between the worlds, Admiral Chen was asking herself the same question, except she was asking what had gone right. The answer would reshape the galaxy. High Counselor Vexton had lived for over 800 years. She had witnessed the rise and fall of entire civilizations, had seen species bloom across the stars and others fade into cosmic dust. In all that time, nothing had prepared her for the reports coming from the human system. Repeat that, she commanded, her ancient voice carrying across the council chambers to where Ambassador Zethikri stood before the assembled leadership of 847 worlds. The humans have captured 17 of our ships, High Counselor. Not destroyed, captured. Our crews are being held in what they call prisoner of war camps on various asteroids and moons throughout their system. Impossible, another counselor interjected. Council vessels have self-destruct mechanisms precisely to prevent capture. The humans somehow disabled those mechanisms before our crews could activate them, Zethikri continued. Their boarding parties used some kind of electromagnetic pulse weapon that temporarily shut down all ship systems, including life support. Our crews had to choose between surrender and suffocation. High Counselor Vexton leaned forward in her floating chair. How many casualties? Current estimates show over 400 Council ships destroyed or disabled. Human casualties are difficult to determine. They appear to be using automated systems for many of their vessels. Automated systems? Drone ships, High Counselor. Many of the vessels we destroyed contained no living crew members. We have been fighting an enemy who can afford to lose ships because they do not lose lives. The council chamber fell silent except for the quiet hum of life support systems. 800 years of military superiority, 800 years of unchallenged dominance, and they were being fought to a standstill by a species that had barely learned to leave their own planet. What are Admiral HFY's recommendations? Vexton asked finally. He requests permission to use stellar bombardment weapons, High Counselor. He believes that destroying the human star will end this conflict quickly. Absolutely not. The voice came from Counselor Thexby, one of the newer members of the High Council. We do not destroy entire star systems except in the most extreme circumstances. These humans are not using forbidden technologies or threatening other worlds. They are threatening us, Vexton said coldly. That should be sufficient. High Counselor, Zethikri said carefully, there is something else. Our intelligence services have been analyzing captured human technology and intercepted communications. We have discovered something disturbing. Go on. The humans have been observing the galaxy for much longer than we realized. Their deep space telescopes detected Council first contact procedures with at least 12 different species over the past 50 years. They have been studying our methods, our technology, and our tactics. Studying us how? Every species that joined the Council was required to redirect their communication systems through Council networks. The humans intercepted those signals. They listened to distress calls from civilizations that resisted Council membership. They watched worlds burn from light years away. Vexithon felt something cold settle in her chest. What are you saying, Ambassador? I am saying they know, High Counselor. The humans know exactly what membership in the Galactic Council means. They have seen what happens to species that resist. They have also seen what happens to species that surrender. And what, in their primitive understanding, happens to species that surrender? Zethkri hesitated before answering. They cease to be independent. Their governments are dissolved. Their military forces are disbanded. Their young are taken to be educated in council ways. Their worlds are managed by council administrators. They become servants. They become civilized members of galactic society. Vexthun corrected firmly. Yes, High Counselor, but the humans do not see it that way. Another long silence fell over the chamber. Finally, Counselor Thexpi spoke. Perhaps we should consider negotiating with them. If they understand the consequences of resistance, maybe they also understand the benefits of cooperation. The time for negotiation has passed, Vexthun said sharply. They have destroyed council ships and killed council personnel. They must be made an example of, or every species in the galaxy will think they can defy us. But even as she spoke, she was reviewing the intelligence reports that had been flooding in from across council space, reports that made no sense until viewed in the context of human interference. On the rim worlds, there had been unusual communications traffic. Coded messages between worlds that should have had no reason to communicate. On some planets, there had been small but significant increases in military recruitment. Nothing alarming by itself, but taken together. Counselor Thexpi, she said slowly. What is the current status of your homeworld's defense forces? Thexpi looked surprised by the question. Normal levels, High Counselor. Why do you ask? And your communications with other rim worlds? Any unusual activity? Well, there have been some scientific exchanges with neighboring systems. Research sharing, cultural programs. Nothing unusual. But Vexthun could see the uncertainty in his eyes. She turned to her personal aide, a small creature whose species had been among the first to join the council millennia ago. Contact all sector commanders immediately. I want a full report on military readiness and communications activity for every member world. High Counselor, Zethkri said, what are you thinking? I am thinking that while we have been fighting the humans, they may have been talking to our member species, and I am wondering what they might have said. The reports began coming in within hours. The pattern was subtle but unmistakable. Increased communications between worlds that had little in common, except their distance from council homeworlds. Military exercises on planets that had not conducted such training in decades. Most telling of all, requests for historical records. Specifically, records of their species' first contact with the council. They are remembering, Vexthun whispered to herself. High Counselor, the member species. They are remembering what they were before they joined us, and someone has been helping them remember. She called up a star map showing the current positions of council fleets. Nearly 2/3 of their military strength was tied up in the human system, fighting a war that showed no signs of ending quickly. The remaining ships were scattered across thousands of worlds, maintaining order and preventing exactly the kind of unrest that appeared to be building. Ambassador, she said to Zethkri, I want you to return to the human system immediately, but not to fight, High Counselor. I want you to talk to Admiral Chen again. I want you to ask her a direct question. What do the humans want? We already know what they want. They want independence. No, Vexthun said grimly. I do not think that is all they want. I think they want something much more dangerous. She stared at the star map, at the thousands of worlds held together by council authority and council fear. For 800 years, the system had worked perfectly. Species joined willingly or were forced to join. Either way, they became part of something greater than themselves. But now, for the first time, someone was asking the member species a question that had not been heard in the galaxy for centuries. What if you could choose? High Counselor, her aide said quietly, we are receiving reports of unrest on 17 worlds. Local governments are demanding to review their membership agreements with the council. Vexthun closed her ancient eyes. She had seen this pattern before at the very beginning of her long life. It was how empires fell, not to external enemies but to the quiet rebellion of those they claimed to protect. Send the message to Admiral Chen, she ordered. Tell her the High Council wishes to discuss terms. Terms for what, High Counselor? Terms for ending this war before it spreads to every corner of the galaxy. But Vexthun suspected it might already be too late. The humans had not just rejected council membership. They had shown the rest of the galaxy that rejection was possible. And that, she realized, might be the most dangerous weapon humanity possessed. Admiral Chen sat in the command center of humanity's newest space station, hidden deep within the asteroid belt where Council sensors could not detect it. Around her, screens showed the positions of ships from 47 different species, not Council vessels, but the hastily assembled fleets of worlds that had decided to follow humanity's example. Admiral, her communications officer, reported, "We are receiving another surrender request from the Galactic Council. High Counselor Vexthan is asking to speak with you directly." "Put her through," Chen said calmly. The main screen flickered to life, showing the ancient alien leader. Vexthan looked tired, Chen thought. 800 years old and tired in a way that went deeper than physical exhaustion. "Admiral Chen," Vexthan began without preamble, "I am prepared to offer humanity full membership in the Council, with unprecedented autonomy. You may keep your military forces, your government systems, even your territorial claims. All we ask is that you cease your interference with other member species." Chen smiled slightly. "High Counselor, I think you misunderstand the situation. This is not about humanity anymore." "What do you mean?" "Tell me, High Counselor, when was the last time a member species actually asked to join the Council? Not threatened, not conquered, not given ultimatums, actually asked?" Vexthan was quiet for a long moment. "I do not understand the relevance of that question." "The relevance is that you have been running a protection racket for 800 years, and now your victims are comparing notes." On cue, Chen's tactical officer activated a galaxy-wide communications array that had been built in secret over the past month. Suddenly, screens throughout Council space lit up with the same message, broadcast simultaneously to every populated world in known space. It was not a message from Admiral Chen or Earth's government. Instead, it was a collection of voices, beings from dozens of different species speaking in their own languages about their own experiences. "My name is Kethri, of the Valdari homeworld," the first voice said. 50 years ago, the Galactic Council came to our world. They said we could join them or be destroyed. We joined. They took our children to be educated in their ways. They disbanded our government. They told us we were being civilized. "I am Thane Boric of the Hegemony worlds," another voice continued. "The Council said they would protect us from hostile species. We have been waiting 70 years to meet these hostile species. We are beginning to think they do not exist." "My name is Plexty of the 9th Colony," a third voice added. "The Council takes 60% of our agricultural output as taxes. They tell us this feeds the greater galactic community. We have learned that most of this food goes to the Council homeworlds, where beings live in luxury while we ration our children's meals." The messages continued for over an hour. Species after species, world after world, all telling the same story with local variations. The Galactic Council's protection was expensive. Their civilization came at the cost of freedom. Their peace was built on the surrender of everyone except themselves. When the broadcast ended, Vexthan's face had gone pale. "Where did you get this information?" she demanded. "From your own communication networks," Chen replied. "Did you really think that forcing every species to route their communications through Council systems would keep them isolated forever? We taught them how to encrypt messages. We showed them how to coordinate. Most importantly, we asked them a question that apparently no one had asked in 800 years. What question? Are you here by choice? Vexthan stared at her for several long moments. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. What do you want? We want the galaxy to have a choice, Chen said simply. Real choice. Not the false choice between submission and destruction that you have been offering for centuries. And if the Council refuses to allow this choice, then the Council will discover what happens when several hundred species coordinate their resistance instead of facing you one at a time. As if summoned by her words, new contacts appeared on sensors throughout the galaxy. Ships were moving toward Council homeworlds from dozens of directions, not to attack but to demand answers. Peaceful demonstrations were turning into system-wide protests as populations that had been quiet for generations suddenly found their voices. This is chaos, Vexthan said desperately. Without the Council, there will be wars, conflicts, suffering. Maybe, Chen admitted. Freedom is messy. It is dangerous. People make mistakes when they are free to choose. But High Counselor, at least they get to make their own mistakes. You do not understand what you have done. Some species cannot handle independence. Some worlds will fall into barbarism without Council guidance. And some will flourish. Some will become something greater than they ever could have been under Council control. That is what freedom means. The right to succeed or fail on your own terms. Chen leaned forward, her voice becoming more intense. High Counselor, humanity spent most of its history being told what to think by kings and dictators and people who claimed to know what was best for everyone else. We learned that the people who say they know what is best for you usually know what is best for them. So what happens now? Vexthon asked. Now you have a choice, Chen said. You can try to hold your empire together by force, fighting wars on hundreds of worlds against people who no longer believe your promises. Or you can let it evolve into something better. Something better? A real alliance. Not a collection of conquered worlds paying tribute to their conquerors, but a voluntary association of free species working together because they choose to, not because they are forced to. Chen gestured to another screen that showed a document written in dozens of languages. We have been working on this for months with representatives from member worlds across the galaxy. The Free Worlds Charter. Any species can join. Any species can leave. Decisions are made by consensus, not by decree. Technology and resources are shared freely, not extracted as taxes. And if we refuse, then you refuse. But High Counselor, look at your screens. Look at the reports coming in from across your empire. How many worlds are already in open revolt? How many more will join them tomorrow? Vexthon did look, and what she saw filled her with dread. Over 200 worlds had already declared independence from the Council. More were joining every hour. The military forces that had once kept order were stretched beyond their limits, and many of them were refusing orders to fire on civilians. This will mean the end of everything we built, she said finally. No, Chen corrected gently. This will mean the beginning of something we build together, as equals. 3 days later, High Counselor Vexthon stood before the Galactic Council for the last time in its ancient form. Around her, empty seats marked the absence of representatives who had already withdrawn from the organization. Their ancestors had joined under duress. The motion before us is simple, she announced to the remaining members. We can formally dissolve the Galactic Council and help establish the Free Worlds Alliance in its place. Or we can fight a war we cannot win against an enemy that is not an enemy, but our own people demanding their freedom. The vote was closer than she had expected, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Too many council members had already seen the writing on the wall. When the results were announced, Vexthon felt something she had not experienced in centuries. Relief. Later, as she watched the signing ceremony for the Free Worlds Charter, she found herself standing next to Admiral Chen. Do you really think this will work? She asked the human leader. I do not know, Chen admitted. But High Counselor, for the first time in 800 years, the galaxy gets to find out. And that is enough. On screens throughout known space, representatives from 847 worlds, some former council members, some new species making contact for the first time, some human colonies spreading across the galaxy, added their signatures to a document that began with words that had not been spoken in galactic politics for millennia. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all sentient species are created equal, that they are endowed by their existence with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of their own destiny. It was not the end of conflict in the galaxy. Free beings would disagree, compete, and sometimes fight. But for the first time in centuries, they would do so as equals, not as masters and subjects. And in a small system orbiting a yellow star, the species that had simply said no to galactic tyranny watched the universe change and knew that sometimes the most human thing you can do is remind everyone else that they are free to be themselves.